Kincaid will have a good year. James Cook will have a good year. Time will only tell.
Yep.
To move forward from there, we get into our top five. Joe Burrow. Oh, this will be the fun little debate here.
Yeah, so Wiggs has him ranked as number one again. It must have been on that same day he was smoking that good stuff. And then I've got Burrow ranked as number 9. Burrow's coming off an injury. He played 10 games last year. Listen, I think Joe Burrow's a good quarterback? Yes. Do I think he's going to light the fire this year? I don't. Does he have one of the best receivers in the league? Yes. He's got Chase, and he's got Higgins. And, Higgins obviously it's most likely his last year in Cincinnati. They lost Tyler Boyd, which I think is going to prove to be a huge loss. They lost Joe Mixon. Yes, they brought in Zach Moss. Yes, they got Chase Brown. I think, bringing in Moss was a good pickup. Moss is certainly no Joe Mixon, though. Joe Mixon is definitely, he's a consistent running back. Do I think Burrow's going to light up the world this year? No, I don't. Wiggs disagrees with me, and that's fine. That's great. That's what we're here for. It's all right to have a different opinion. I see Burrow maybe having 3,500 yards this year. Could he get 4,000 yards? Yeah. I just think the two big losses on their offense, Mixon and Boyd, especially Boyd, because Boyd was a tremendous number 3 receiver on that team, is going to have a huge impact on their offense, and so that's why I had Burrow ranked 9. I don't feel like he, that he's going to have as great a year as some people might think he's going to.
And I obviously disagree, as I have him as my number 1. I think that's pretty clear. I think, and this could be a hot take, I think Joe Burrow's throwing for over 4,500 yards. I think he's going to have well over 30 touchdowns passing, and I think he's actually going to have a decent bulk of rushing touchdowns as well. I know that might be a hot take, but I have Joe Burrow as my number 1 here at quarterback, and when we get to our wide receivers, I have Ja'Marr Chase as my number 1. So I think Chase will have 1,600 plus yards this year with about 15 touchdowns. Clip it now. That's what's going to happen.
Well, at the end of the year, I'll be accepting your apology.
Yeah, and you won't be, because he's going to be having a great year. I think T. Higgins is also going to go for over 1,000 yards. I think Higgins is actually going to have a really good year. I think he's going to be above 1,200 with about 10 touchdowns of his own right. So, there's that. And then I think Chase Brown actually will have a pretty solid year receiving as well. I think he'll have probably 500 to 600 yards receiving as a running back. I think he'll have a decent bulk of touchdowns as well. I do think he's going to take away a little bit from Zach Moss's production. And then you'll just have the, other guys catching the ball, like everyone else he throws to. He's going to throw to a decent amount of people, and I have him at my number 1. I don't care how much of a hot take that sounds like, but it's Joe frickin' Burrow.
All right, let's move on.
Enough said. Jared Goff. We're close on this one, at least.
Yeah.
Again.
So, listen, I had Goff at 5. Wiggs had him at 4. Last year, I know Goff had over, 4,500 yards, I believe it was. He's got arguably, one of a top 5 receiver in St. Brown. He's got probably one of the best tight ends in the league in Laporta. Raymond had a decent year last year. I think Jamison Williams is going to have a breakout season. That's just my take. He's got 2 tremendous running backs in Gibbs and Montgomery. This guy is, to me, gets hammered every year. People trash him, but listen, my God, he threw for 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns last year. I don't see the Lions letting off the gas this year. It would not surprise me if Goff comes out close to 5,000 yards this year. It wouldn't surprise me. I think that they have the potential to have three between their running backs and receivers, three guys that are over 1,000 yards. I think Laporta is going to have over 1,000 yards. I think St. Brown is definitely going to have at least 1,500 yards, if not more. And I think Jamison Williams is going to have a breakout year. I can see him having 1,200 yards. I really do. I think the guy's got a lot of talent. I think he's going to fly under the radar, and I think he's going to be definitely a hot sleeper this year in fantasy. So that's why I have Goff up here, and listen, for all you haters out there of Goff, let me just say this: look at his stats compared to Patty Mahomes. That's all I got to say.
You look at Jared Goff, too. Half of his career, he's thrown for over 4,500 yards. 4 of 8 seasons, he's done it. Twice on the Rams, twice on Detroit. 2 of his 3 years in Detroit have been super consistent. 4,500 yards, averaging 29.5 touchdowns in each of those seasons. So, yeah. Y'all are doubting Jared Goff too much. I do agree to the point that St. Brown will have 1,500 plus yards. Laporta will have over 1,000. I'm not sold on Jamison Williams yet. He's done nothing since joining the league besides get hurt. I'm not sold on the guy. I don't think he'll go over 1,000. I could see him being around 7 or 8. But
well, in all fairness, when they drafted him, he was hurt. So now,
yeah, but in all fairness, you look at him last year and what did he do?
well, he was coming. That was he was coming off.
Played 12 games, had 350 yards.
Yeah, he was still dealing with it. So I agree with you though. He's got to stay healthy. You don't help your team if you're not out on the field.
He hasn't done anything to prove himself to me.
That's why I think he's gonna have a breakout year.
But
mark it here, people. Papa Wig says Jamison Williams
looking at
breakout years. Take that to the bank.
Looking at his running backs, like Jahmyr Gibbs will have, I think, probably 600 yards receiving himself. That might be a little bit of a hot take. I think that's where a lot of the yardage is going to come up. I think I agree with you. I think he'll have 4,500. I think a lot of it will come behind Jahmyr Gibbs, who I think is going to have 500 to 600 yards. I think he'll take away reps from David Montgomery. I definitely don't see Montgomery being used much in the receiving game at all. So I think that's where a lot of it will come from, is from Gibbs, who I think is around, like the 12 spot as a running back. But I don't think it's far-fetched, for my Joe Burrow, if this is how we're going with Jared Goff. But, moving on. Our number 3, CJ Stroud.
Listen, I got Stroud as my number 1 quarterback. I know some people are going to disagree with that, and that's fine. Stroud had 4,100 yards last year. He threw for 23 touchdowns. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. He's not a huge rushing guy. He only had 160 yards rushing. But listen, he's got Nico Collins. He's got Stephon Diggs. He's got Tank Dell. He's got Noah Brown. He's got Dalton Schultz. They brought in Joe Mixon. They also got Dameon Pierce. This guy is going to be spreading the ball around all year, and all he's going to do is rack up stats and stuff. I believe that he's definitely, some people think he's going to have a sophomore slump. I don't. I think bringing in Stephon Diggs, to that wide receiving core, already having Collins and Tank Dell and Noah Brown, is going to just make him that much better. I think having Joe Mixon in there with Dameon Pierce, oh my God, this offense is loaded. And I think it's not going out of the realm to say that Stroud could throw for at least 5,000 yards this year. I mean, he's going to be spreading the ball around to everybody. Everybody's going to be involved in that passing game. So he's the one that's going to benefit from that. Not only are the players going to benefit from it, but he's going to benefit from it. And I think Houston's going to have a tremendous season. I just think that they've done a great job there surrounding him with weapons. That's why I picked him as my number 1 quarterback, and I stand by that. I think he legitimately has a chance to get over 5,000 yards.
I definitely do agree to you on the fact that he does have a chance of getting to that one spot as quarterback this year and throwing over 5,000 yards. The only way I see that happening, though, is if he throws for at least 35 plus touchdowns this year. He needs to add on at least 12 from what he did last year. He's shown that he is smart with the ball. He only had 5 interceptions last year in his rookie year, on top of throwing for 4,100 yards and completing 319 passes. Like, if you're only throwing 5 interceptions there, like, that's not bad at all. Like, that's actually really good thinking about it, especially from a rookie. But the only way I see him being number one is if he throws for 35 plus touchdowns, and I think that's fair to say within a PPR format when you have other people like Jalen Hurts or Jared Goff, Joe Burrow, like even Josh Allen could have a year like that where he still throws for a decent amount of touchdowns. Like, for me, it all comes down to how many touchdowns he throws. He'll obviously have at least 2 1,000-yard receivers, if not 3. Joe Mixon's gonna have over 1,000 yards rushing. I personally think he'll probably be around the 44 to 4,500 yard range, but he's got the weapons, like you said. You got 4 receivers, a tight end, you got 2 running backs, even though one of them's kind of meh. You got the weapons. You got to be able to get it done. Especially if you were able to get it done with a pretty underrated crew last year. Like, no one expected Nico Collins to have over 1,000 yards. No one expected much from Tank Dell before he got hurt. Noah Brown, like even Robert Woods was in the mix last year. Like, we'll kind of see how it pans on out here. Moving on to the number 2, we got Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, so we both had him ranked at 3. It's Lamar, right? So last year, Lamar was the MVP, right? So, I don't necessarily agree that he should have been the MVP, but he still had over 3,600 yards, 24 touchdowns in 16 games, and he rushed for over 800 yards and 5 touchdowns. His receivers this year, I think their receiving core is, he's got Zay Flowers, Bateman, Aguilar, and so I think he's got, and obviously he's got Mark Andrews, right? So, and then his running backs this year are definitely a lot different. They got the King, Henry, in the backfield. They got Keaton Mitchell and Justice Hill. Obviously, King Henry was a big addition that they made in the offseason. Here's my take on him this year. I think Lamar is gonna continue his connection with Mark Andrews. If Mark Andrews stays healthy, I think Andrews is gonna have 1,200 yards. And he's obviously a big target for him in the red zone. I think Rashad Bateman, if he stays healthy this year, I'm hearing that he's put in the work this offseason. I think he's gonna have have a breakout year this year. And I think Zay Flowers had a great rookie year last year. So I think Lamar is going to have definitely a better year. Wouldn't surprise me, with Andrews staying healthy and he stays healthy, he's going to have over 4,000 yards. And I definitely see him having, 500 plus yards this year. His yard total might go down a little bit because of King Henry, but it could, it might still be around 800. So, but I definitely think it'll be over 500 plus yards, and I definitely see him right around the 5 TD rushing mark as well. And he'll probably, I probably wouldn't surprise me if he's around the 30 TD passing range too. So
I think adding Derrick Henry to the team is going to force him to be in the pocket a little bit more. So I could definitely see him throwing for over 4,000 yards. I think Zay Flowers will obviously have over 1,000 yards. Mark Andrews definitely will. Bateman, I could see around 800 yards himself. I can even see Likely having like a good 500 to 600 yards on top of it. Cause I could see them totally using 2 tight ends. I think adding Henry to the team opens up a lot because you could run a lot more two tight end setups and free Henry up a little bit. I think it'll help the passing game because he can run a lot more play action because he's got, a top running back on his team. He can run a play action, and I think it'll actually benefit them in the red zone running a play action because we all know what Lamar can do on his feet. It literally could be a quick little play action. He could just take off for a touchdown. Like, I know people are stressing that, oh, Henry's on the team. He's going to take away from his rushing yards, which, yeah, he's going to. He's probably only going to be around 500 to 600 yards, but I think that frees it up more so for the touchdown aspect of it, which at the end of the day, if your quarterback's running in a touchdown, that's just as much as running, 60 yards. Like, that's all he needs. I think he's going to be around 7 to 8 touchdowns this year, throwing over 4,000 yards and probably like 26 or 27 touchdowns. So, moving on to our last man of the hour. I think we all know who it is. Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, so I had Hurts as my number 2. Same with Wiggs. Obviously Hurts last year, he had thrown for 3,800 yards, 23 touchdowns. He rushed for over 600 yards. Geez, he had another 15 rushing TDs. Listen, do I think he's going to have 15 rushing touchdowns this year? No. Do I think the tush push is going to be something that's going to work as well this year for them? No. They lost Jason Kelsey. He was the guy that made the tush push work. He retired. I don't see the tush push working as effectively as it did last year. So I like I said with Josh Allen, I think you can cut his Russian TDs in half. I see him maybe around 7 or 8, if that, possibly less. He's got AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. I mean, they're definitely a huge duo. Paris Campbell's in there as well. Dallas Goedert is definitely one of the better tight ends in the league. They picked up Saquon as their running back, and they got Gainwell as his backup. Obviously their offense is going to be good. I think where he loses the touchdowns in the rushing aspect, he picks it up in the passing game. I can see him being close to around the same this year as he was last year. I think Saquon, if he stays healthy, probably is going to dig into Hurts's rushing total more because Saquon's definitely, if he's out on the field, is definitely going to be an active part of their offense in the rushing game. So for me, I see Hurts having between 3,800 and 4,000 yards passing, probably right around 30 TDs. Passing. I think his rushing yards dips down a little bit this year. I think he's going to be maybe between 300 to 500 yards rushing, and I definitely think his rushing TDs are going to be around anywhere between 5 and 8 rushing TDs. I don't think it's going to be 15. I don't think the tush push is going to work like it did in the past for them. It would surprise me if you see him maybe even get away from it a little bit. So anyways, that's how I look at it. I definitely think he's got 2 of the better. AJ Brown is arguably a top 5 wide receiver in my eyes. The guy's a beast. Devontae Smith has proven to be a really great, consistent second receiver. So I definitely think he's got the weapons on the team, and it wouldn't surprise me if he finishes number 1. It wouldn't surprise me if he finishes behind, CJ Stroud and Lamar and even Joe Burrow. I think it just kind of all depends on how their offensive line looks this year, and where where he ends up with his rushing yards and rushing TDs. Because really, let's be honest, his 15 rushing TDs are the reason that he got pushed up in fantasy points last year. So
Yeah, and I think stat wise, I think he'll be around the same. I think he'll throw a few less interceptions, throw a few more touchdowns. I think honestly, me personally, I think he's still going to be around 9 to 10 rushing touchdowns as well. I've seen a lot of, clips and talk about Jason Kelsey being in the facility quite a bit, so maybe he rubs off on the new center there, and maybe their tush push still works. And Jalen Hurts is a big body, so like I could still see it working regardless. But
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So, well, Wiggs, there's our first rankings on the QBs, the top 30. Um, Man, let me just say thanks again for all your work on all the graphics and everything. You've done a tremendous job there. I hope everybody out there appreciates the content that we're putting out there. Please, check us out on Fantasy Fools PPR on our YouTube channel. Subscribe. We've got a lot more content. We just started with QBs. We'll be doing the running backs, the receivers, tight ends. We've been discussing a lot of different content that we're going to be doing this year. Wiggs, clips this stuff up, puts it out on X. We're out on Snap. We're out on TikTok, Instagram. Check us out. Subscribe, like, follow. We appreciate all of it. We hope you find our takes on the fantasy football PPR 12-man leagues a little bit different than some of the other takes that you're seeing from these other fantasy guys. Again, we don't claim to be experts. We're just giving our opinion, but we love fantasy football. We love talking about it. So we just hope that you take something out of this and enjoy the content.
and if you look at our stuff, you can clearly tell we're not sitting there and copying other people. Like you look at other sites and other, people who consider themselves experts, they have like Dak Prescott sitting there in what, like the top 3 or top 4 still. And
Yeah,
like I feel like our lists are a little bit different, and
we got different takes on those
yeah,
other guys. And hey, listen, are we going to hit on every take?
no,
No, we're not. But hence the name, Fantasy Fools.
yeah.
So
We live up to our word. We'll give you some foolish takes, okay?
right. So we're gonna give you some takes that you're gonna think are off the wall, but then we're gonna give you some takes that are gonna make you think. So just keep that in mind, and by the end of the year, I can guarantee you there's gonna be a lot of our takes that I feel on both sides, not just mine, but on Wiggs as well, that are gonna hit. And so
And we're gonna revisit those next off season. We will sit there and discuss and see. Like I'm keeping all these graphics, and we'll just see which ones we hit on and which ones we didn't, and it's gonna be a fun time.
yeah, and keep in mind this is our early rankings. As training camp starts here, which is starting up this week for almost all the teams, and as preseason games come on, rankings are gonna change. Based on injuries and possible surprise cuts, stuff like that. So
Even
keep that
midway
in
through the
mind.
year too.
But obviously, we're gonna always provide an update, updated rankings and stuff, so people can see that based on week by week once we get to the season. So.
Well, yeah, stay around till the season. Once we get to the season, it's kind of gonna be a more consistent schedule, I'd say. Waiver wire pickups, recapping games, talking about the games for the upcoming week, all that fun stuff. So,
hey, listen, we just want to give you another take out there. Hey, we're not one of those high budget guys. Hey, look at where we're at.
we're in a room recording this right now.
So we're not sitting here claiming that we know everything. We're just giving you another take that hopefully you find beneficial for when you're getting ready for your fantasy football season.
But yeah, other than that, stay tuned for future videos. Like my dad said here, wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, all that's going to be taken into account leading up to the season. We might do another mock draft or two. We might even drop some videos comparing like quarterbacks, or talking more in depth on why maybe we picked like Joe Burrow as our number 1 compared to number 9 type thing.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a lot of different content.
Yeah.
So again, we appreciate all you guys checking us out, and share our stuff. If you like it, please share it. Not only subscribe or like or whatever, but share it. Let people know out there. That hey, listen, you might want to check these guys out. Anything you can do for us on that, we appreciate. In regards to that,
even if it's just clipping out our hot takes or takes you disagree with, and you're cooking us out on X or something, if you're sharing it, that's bringing more eyes our way. Which at the end of the day, it's content. It doesn't have to be.
Cook us all you want.
Yeah,
You're not going to hurt our feelings.
We don't care. Like you disagree and you want to like call us out on some BS, go for it. I mean, you're just sharing it around at that point, which is still helping us. So.
All right. Well, until next time. See you guys.